It's January of 2020. As a new year dawns, the world is aglow with possibility. 365 days lie ahead of us, each one pregnant with the possibility of adventure. In the news, whispers and rumours of a strange illness born out of the east begin to swirl like the murmuration of starlings. But living in a world with the most advanced and robust healthcare systems man has ever known, surely there is nothing to worry about. It's April of 2020. The entire world is shut indoors, taking part in a live-action recreation of Stephen King's The Stand. But only the good first half and not the stupid second half. Sequestered in our homes, deprived of human contact, people naturally turn to their screens for sustenance. For many, the soft glow of an LCD became teacher, mother, confidant, and as ever-increasing numbers of people debased themselves on the hub, lover. We became like iPad babies, but fully grown iPad babies, and together we endured the Tiger King phase, the bread-making phase, and later, as many began to socially distance themselves from sanity, we endured the complete collapse of societal norms phase. Our love affair with our screens has never been as strong as it was in those reclusive, isolated months. Like many, I drew my curtains to the howling wreckage of the world and soothed myself with an unhealthy amount of YouTube. And left to the whims of the algorithm, I was funneled down a rabbit hole of legally dubious, morally questionable, but undeniably entertaining fighting organizations. There was the carnival shit like Fight Circus, and the heavy hitters like Street Beefs, Defend FC, and the dark souls of underground fighting, King of the Streets. COVID lockdowns and the subsequent explosion in YouTube viewership was a boom time for these fight clubs. All it took was the worst airborne plague since Katy Perry went into space to turn people onto the idea of DoorDash drivers and soccer moms beating the shit out of each other in hastily constructed cages. Approximately 5 years ago at time of writing, after months of exposure to these fight clubs, I decided to make one of my first attempts at a video essay, entitled The Wild World of Underground Fighting. Like most people's first attempts at creating anything on YouTube, it was more ham-fisted than a Kermit the Frog sex tape. It was poorly edited, poorly recorded, and more cheaply produced than a North Korean soap opera. But the concept itself was solid. An exploration of the world of fighting, so far removed from the bright lights of the UFC or the fat purses of professional boxing that it may as well exist on another plane of reality. A world that takes the prize out of prize fighting, that takes the sport out of combat sports. Unsanctioned fighting has lost none of its popularity in the years since my first attempt to document this world. In fact, it may be more popular than ever. King of the Streets are making their own documentary movie. The UK has its own Street Beefs clone called King of the Ring, whose fights have amassed over 39 million views. And former UFC flyweight GOAT Demetrius Johnson can routinely be spotted coaching fighters in Street Beefs. In 2025, the backyards have gone worldwide. As preparation for this video, I put out a request for anyone who has competed in an unsanctioned fight club to contact me. Of all the responders, 2% were people who were essentially just fucking around in their basement. Shout out to the guys at Fart FC. 1% was a gentleman who competes in unsanctioned medieval MMA, which is, not gonna lie, pretty fucking cool, but not really what I was looking for. As for the other 97% of respondees, this overwhelming majority had all fought for the organisation called Street Beefs.
Oh, she tried to kick me in my fucking pussy.
It's a street beef, bitch. It's a street beef, bitch.
Street Beefs is undoubtedly the most popular of the underground fight clubs, so much so it's hard to even call it underground, having a subscriber base of 4.6 million, which means the population of the streets of Beef is only slightly less than my entire fucking country. Started in 2008 by Christopher Scarface Wilmore, Beef Cheeks was originally intended as a way for people to settle a neighbourhood dispute, sometimes referred to as a street beef. The inaugural Street Beefs fights took place on nothing more than a piebald patch of barren dirt in the backyard of a dilapidated house, and were filmed on what appears to be a Fisher-Price laugh and learn camera that's been smeared with Vaseline. Street Beefs had a rough start, but not quite as rough as its founder. As a child, Wilmore suffered over 80% burns to his body after attempting to rescue his brother from a house fire, but the fire was too much for any young child to brave. The roof of the house collapsed, killing his brother and searing the young Wilmore's skin with a lifelong visual reminder of that night. Post-fire, he underwent over 100 individual surgeries and spent a year in a burn unit, hooked up to a morphine drip, which he claimed was the catalyst for an adulthood pockmarked by drug addiction.
My brother died in the house fire. There was times when I felt guilty, like maybe if I had been stronger, I could have got to him and he'd still be alive. It was something that I had a hard time dealing with. And I got into real hardcore drug abuse.
As an adult, Wilmore would spend a total of 9 years in jail for offences ranging from assault to possession.
When I was 16, I was stabbed in the throat. Here's where I had a tracheotomy. Went to prison. I was a bad person.
But it took another pointless death, this time a close friend being shot dead, for Wilmore to realise he needed to do something to try and make a positive change in his community.
He was sitting on the stoop, waiting on his son to come out, and the guy just came up and opened fire, shot him in the back. He bled out right there in the parking spot, right in front of his child. Pissed me off so bad, because I'm like, yo, man, what makes you think that you get any kind of respect for shooting somebody? Just put your hands up and fight. That was the light bulb moment.
Wilmore, who had seen friends die and almost died himself over petty disputes, decided then and there to dedicate his life to resolving these street beefs by trading gun violence for sloppy amateur fisting violence in an arena lovingly nicknamed Satan's Backyard. Street Beefs was born. While Street Beefs would eventually go on to host what are essentially just amateur boxing or MMA fights between people who have no actual reason to be pummeling each other, the majority of early fights were between people who had interpersonal drama, sometimes called beef. In a documentary made by the Wall Street Journal before Street Beefs had even hit 100,000 subscribers, we get a closer look as Scarface helps squash a beef that was threatening to spill over into gun violence. The dispute was resolved without even staging a fight, as Scarface just straight up paid off the debt.
I'm gonna step in and pay what he feels you owe him, and then we can squash it. I'm doing that just to stop the bullshit, because that's what we're supposed to do anyways. That's what we stand for.
But not all beefs can be settled so amicably. In another video, we meet the Iraqi Assassin, who was a prominent and active fighter in the formative years of the channel. Iraqi Assassin had been receiving racist abuse, and so took it to the Street Beef's backyard to silence his harasser once and for all.
So you got a dispute fight?
Yes, sir. I had a beef fight with this dude who was basically was really racist to me.
What happened after you guys fought?
I beat his up, knocked him out, sleep. Yeah, bro.
What happened after that?
Then we just went our own way.
But not every beef fight was life or death. In what looks to be Street Beef's first ever bra and panties match, a half-naked woman sloppily brawls with a woman half her size in the dead of night on a hard-packed patch of dirt. Midway through the fight, we find out the reason for this particular beef match.
I never took it.
Yes, you did. Your sister fucking told me.
She's
That
lying.
she has my shit, bitch.
Call her.
One of the earliest beef fights to transcend Satan's backyard and spread to the wider internet was a beef between a martial arts YouTuber named Icy Mike and a man known only by the name bestowed upon him by the Grand Masters of North American Ninjutsu, Ninja Ron. I honestly assumed that people had stopped claiming to be real-life ninjas sometime around the mid-90s, as by that time, claiming to be a ninja was the martial arts equivalent of claiming that you can read tea leaves or use a divining rod. But even in the modern era, where MMA is more ubiquitous than microplastics, grown men still cling to their ninja daydreams. Rather unbelievably, in the year 2017 AD, somewhere in the ancient mystical land of Beckley, West Virginia, a weapon to surpass Frank Dukes was being forged. Ninja Ron first gained online notoriety by obsessively harassing another ninjutsu practitioner named Don Rowley on the old mixedmartialarts.com forums. He also wrote a book called, and I swear to God I'm not making this up, Drunken Wolverine Ninja Kung Fu, a realistic guide to street fighting. This man releasing a book called A Realistic Guide to Street Fighting is like Conor McGregor releasing a book called A Realistic Guide to Sobriety and Monogamy. Weirdly, Ron also had beef with Frank Dukes of all people, and dedicated a large portion of his time attempting to expose Frank as a fraud, not because he thought Frank's ninja claims were ridiculous, but because Frank's ninja claims weren't ridiculous enough. While Ron had a towering hate cock for Frank Dukes, on the flip side, he was like the Oasis to Ishida Kim's Beatles. Ron was such a super fan of sexual hobgoblin Kim that he even published his ninja trash manuals through Kim's own Dojo Press publishing company. Although, quick sidebar here, if you think getting published by Ishida Kim is any kind of a success indicator, it isn't. This is the man who wrote a book called The Last Christmas, in which COVID is the main antagonist that is somehow preventing Christians from being able to say Happy Christmas, and is, according to Kim, an illness so deadly that you must be tested to see if you have it. And look, I'm no medical expert, but I'm pretty sure that's how most illnesses work. Kim also straight up stole the DVD cover for a straight-to-airplane headrest movie called The Last Christmas, and passed it off as the cover for his book, so no, there is no prestige to be found in the halls of Dojo Press Publishing. Nevertheless, Ron copied Kim's ninja training videos beat for beat, and somehow even managed to have worse production values in the 2010s than Kim did in the 1980s. And I'd also just like to point out that what you're about to hear has not been edited by me in any way. This is the actual production quality of one of Ron's ninja training DVDs. All of this, alongside a healthy dose of stolen valor, because of course Ron had to steal something from Frank Dukes, led to Ron being called out by Icy Mike.
What's up, Street Beefs? This is Icy Mike from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm going to be at Street Beefs on August 26th to settle a beef with a guy named Ron. Now, Ron has claimed that he is a ninja, like a real ninja, and that he was a hand-to-hand combat instructor in the Army, and that he has this website and a YouTube channel, and he publishes books teaching people about hand-to-hand combat and how to fight and how to defend themselves. And I'm a self-defense instructor, and I called BS on all of it. I don't think he knows how to fight. I don't think he knows how to teach people how to fight. I don't think he knows how to teach people how to defend themselves, and I don't think he can even defend himself, because YouTube ninjas are not real.
On August 26, 2017, while the eyes of the world were focused on Mayweather vs McGregor, the real main event was happening in the Street Beef's backyard. Ninja Ron appeared in a puff of smoke, and the fight was on. To give him credit where it's due, Ninja Ron might be the only self-professed ninja grandmaster to ever actually step up and fight someone for real on camera. But once Icy Mike started landing shots, Ron made one crucial error. He based his entire fighting style on Saturday morning cartoons. Icy Mike finished Ron in seconds and created one of the first real viral moments for street beefs.
Not finished. He's done. He's done.
After the loss, Ninja Ron would spiral harder than Junji Ito's sketchbook. He began posting threatening photos of himself holding ancient ninja Glock 9mm on a Facebook group called Bullshit Martial Arts in an effort to intimidate its owners. This eventually led to him being jailed. And honestly, I don't even have time to discuss the half of Ron's story, as his beef with Icy Mike is only the tip of the ninja iceberg. To cut a long story short, Ron was eventually committed to a mental institution, jailed for making terroristic threats to police, and worst of all, was caught in possession of child pornography.
Okay, as many of you know, April 19th, I was arrested for possession of child pornography.
So let's all thank Icy Mike once again for wrecking Ron's shit.
It's a street beef, bitch. It's a street beef, bitch.
Icy Mike vs Ninja Ron may have been one of the first viral moments for street beefs, but it wouldn't be the last. This absolute barn burner was uploaded at roughly the same time as Ron vs Mike and unbelievably racked up over 3 million views. It would be 2 years into the life of the channel when Street Beefs hit 100,000 subscribers, and to celebrate, they finally erected some makeshift ring ropes around the arena. I think the ropes were purely decorative, however, as I've seen Soul Calibur stages that were harder to get thrown out of.
Out of the ring.
I never had such an easy victory.
Street Beefs would continue to grow in popularity, and with a slew of new subscribers and attention came upgrades like an actual octagon, kinda, a slightly less dingy location, and more viral videos, like this one that I'm assuming went viral because no one could figure out how the fuck this man's skull didn't shatter like it was made of frozen porcelain.
It's a street beef, bitch.
I'm not sure who decided the siding of the octagon should be made of solid wood, but it was probably the same man who decided FaZe Clan should be in a Batman comic. I don't know why this crossover exists. Did Batman need help running a crypto scam on the Joker? Or sexting a minor on Discord? For many reasons, this video has been harder to monetize than the average snuff film. Every upload has been hit with more copyright complaints than a Temu sweatshop, and the chances of making any money off this are next to none. Therefore, I just need to give a quick shout out firstly to my patrons, without whose support I would definitely not be able to take a risk making a video like this, and secondly to my first and only sponsor, Clown VPN. Clown VPN is the only 100% clown operated and owned VPN that lets you access a library of clown based content from all over the globe. What do you mean it's not a VPN?
JCW Lunacy. New episodes every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. For over 25 years, JCW has delivered the very best in pro wrestling entertainment, bringing fans deep storytelling drama, gut-busting comedy, and unbelievable in-ring action. From wild characters to unforgettable rivalries, don't miss a single moment. Tune in every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. JCW Lunacy.
Thank you Violent J and JCW Lunacy for being the only clown-based indie wrestling promotion with big enough clown balls to sponsor this video. As the channel grew, Street Beefs also got their first legitimate cosign from the world of MMA, as former UFC lightweight champion Jens Pulver would routinely stream their fights on his Twitch channel, and even made a few guest appearances in Satan's backyard.
I'm here with the legend himself, Mr. Jens Pulver, the first lightweight UFC champion ever. So you came to your first Street Beefs event, man. How was it?
It was everything I thought it would be, man. What's cool is, and like I said, without doing the plug, but like I said, I've been streaming these Twitch TV Jens Pulver. I've been streaming beefs for a long time.
I spoke to a former Street Beefs competitor named Megadeth who had an interesting interaction with Pulver before his fight.
Jens Pulver was there, and he actually almost walked in on me coming out of the porta potty. Because I already had my MMA shorts on and compression shorts and cup, and I didn't when I was going to fight, so I was coming out like doing the Velcro on my fight shorts, and Jens Pulver was walking into the porta potty. I was like, holy crap, did Jens Pulver just walk in on me?
With this growing popularity also came expansion, and in 2020, Street Beefs opened their first franchise, Street Beefs West Coast, and set the stage for one of their greatest viral moments yet, because we were about to be introduced to the legend that is Shinigami the Reaper.
My name's Danny. Everyone knows me better from Street Beefs to Shinigami. I live in the middle of nowhere in a town called Lancaster in the Mojave Desert, and I ended up kind of, just getting into Street Beefs during COVID, and it was just kind of like the only thing there was to compete in. So.
Shinigami's fighting career, more so than any other, sums up for me what is so enjoyable about Street Beefs, because over the years, Beef Streaks has given a platform to genuine characters, the likes of which could never exist in something like the UFC. To hell, even Fight Circus might balk at signing some of the Street Beefs alumni.
I hope to avenge every raccoon that's ever died. Everyone!
These are fighters who are too unpolished and strange to be a part of the mainstream, but too unique to be ignored. The living embodiment of too weird to live, too rare to die. But this is who these people are. Shinigami is not playing a character like, say, Colby Covington, who plays the part of a right-wing podcaster with 25 subscribers and is disliked even by right-wing voters.
If you want to be, I'm going to bring you the 7th layer hair. Hell.
Okay.
This is Shinigami, and speaking as an anime-loving weeb who would probably wear a headband and sleeveless gi if I thought I could pull it off, I can tell you right now that nothing about his persona is an act. It's tempting to say that Shinigami doesn't look like a martial artist because his body type doesn't conform to what we're used to seeing in fighters, but anyone who has spent time in a gym knows that fighters don't always look like fighters. While most people might associate fighters with impossibly jacked, Mark Kerr-esque pulsating flesh tanks, the average person in the gym is, well, an average person. There is no default template that all fighters must conform to. See for example Roy Nelson or out-of-camp Paddy Pimblett. But having said all that, and with all due respect, when you first see Shinigami, he looks like a sketch comedy parody of a martial artist, with his karate gi, black belt and headband that is rumoured to contain the source of his power. Shinigami looks like Rex Kwon Do cosplaying as Master Ken. And in his debut fight, you can feel this sentiment simmering in the crowd. There is an undercurrent of subtle mockery.
Look down there and I'm just sitting there like, what am I doing here? What am I really doing here? This is kind of crazy because I'm in somebody's backyard and there's hay bales, they didn't even have a cage for the West Coast yet. And I just see all these people that look like they just got out of prison or something. But you're right. Everybody was looking at me, especially the weight didn't help either. I was 330 pounds and wearing a gi and a red headband. I heard it. I didn't hear it during the fight, but afterwards, people were like, "Get him, Reed," heckling and all that.
Until Shinigami did something more unexpected than a circle pit at a Coldplay concert.
He does his intro, I do my intro, and the ref says go, and I'm like, oh crap. I really sent a paper saying I have no control over this footage whatsoever, and if I mess up now looking like this, people are really going to be just talking smack and it's going to look horrible. And then I'm like, let's just go. So I throw a little leg kick, but I was kind of nervous at that point for just a split second until I saw him try to block with both hands. And I'm like, All right, let's see what happens if I flick my foot out again.
Shinigami would silence those doubters again that same day, competing in and winning 2 matches in the first ever Street Beef's West Coast event. His viral headkick knockout would rack up 5 million views. Despite having the appearance of an AI prompt for "What if Samwise Gamgee was the Karate Kid?", Shinigami was fucking legit. Again and again, he silenced the doubters with a string of wins and became the unlikely poster boy for Street Beefs. When you heard Shinigami shout out his girl Rachel,
Shout out to my girl Rachel. Shout out to my girl Rachel. Shout out Rachel. Shout out Rachel. Shout out Rachel.
you knew shit was going down harder than the PlayStation Network. But even in Satan's backyard, there are levels to this. In 2022, Shinigami was matched up with a boxer named Nasty Native, and unfortunately for Shinny, even the energy stored up in his iconic headband couldn't save him in this fight. For what it's worth, Nasty Native, real name Cody Beck, would turn pro soon after this fight, and currently has a professional MMA record of 2-4, which might explain the very obvious skill discrepancy in this fight. Shinigami would bounce back in a fight that is the kind of video you should pull up if anyone ever asks you, what's the fighting equivalent of that newspaper headline, "Woman in sumo wrestler suit assaulted her ex-girlfriend in gay pub after she waved at a man dressed as a Snickers bar?" Shinigami vs Unga Bunga is a fever dream of fistic fuckery, in which Shinigami looks like he's been upgraded from Mall Ninja to Mall Samurai, and is introduced by a man cosplaying as Barney Rubble, while Michael Myers is working as a corner man. If there is a more unhinged backdrop to a fistfight, I've yet to see it. Shinigami's most recent fight took place only days before I write this. In what may be the most anime-inspired matchup Street Beefs has ever seen, it was Power Headband versus Power Headband, as Shinigami fought a man named Ryu Senin. Ryu had previously beaten Shinigami in a modified rules fight that was more akin to the rule set for kickboxing or karate combat than his usual MMA-oriented fights. The majority of Shinny's wins are via submission, and while I appreciate that he wanted to put his karate background to the test with these modified rules fights, these fights weren't exactly playing to his strengths, and that showed in the results. Shinny is now 0-2 against Ryu Senin. But if the point I'm trying to make isn't obvious by now, it's that while his looks may lead you to believe otherwise, Shinigami is a fighter to his core. His arrival in Street Beefs may have been met with jeers, but in ramshackle arenas made of splintered pallets, on sand, on gravel-packed dirt, in cages and backyards, whether winning or losing, time after time he proved that a fighter fights while others simply speak. For little more than a cheap belt and his own pride, Danny Uribe, aka Shinigami the Reaper, has fought harder and with more passion than others have fought for millions.
Shout out Rachel!
On November 1st, 2025, which is either a few months in the future or long since past depending on when you watch this, Shinigami will finally be making his pro MMA debut, and I'm going to be there. In spirit. But if you're watching his pro debut, you might notice that alongside his girl Rachel, there's a shout out to a name who may be familiar to you. That's right, Shinigami has a new sponsor. In the greatest mashup since Jeff Goldblum met that fly, I, Napoleon Bonaparte, am the latest and proudest sponsor for Shinigami the Reaper. His wins are my wins, his losses are my losses, and with this partnership, we form like martial arts Voltron to become Napo Shinny Blonagami. 2020 also saw the arrival of a man named David Wilson, aka Baby Hulk. It's not difficult to see exactly why Baby Hulk's videos went viral, as at approximately 5 feet tall, Hulk is a full 2 inches shorter than even the shortest ever UFC flyweight, Hector Sandoval. These are the kind of fights that make you think street beefs may want to consider introducing height classes. In every single fight, Hulk is on the wrong end of a size discrepancy heretofore only seen in my Vladislava Galigan fanfiction. But this is where Street Beef's willingness to give anyone a chance to fight paid off yet again, because much like Shinigami, Hulk is about as legit as they come. His perennial status as David to literally everyone else's Goliath ironically made him arguably the single biggest star Street Beefs has ever produced. Every single video of his has millions of views, and his fight with a man named Viking is Street Beef's most watched video of all time by an absolutely colossal margin. Hulk vs Viking has at time of writing been viewed 51 million times, which is more than double that of its closest rival, Striker vs Caveman, with 21 million views. Wilson left Satan's backyard for the world of pro MMA, making his debut in 2022. With almost 70 million views to his name, Hulk's departure was like a backyard Beyonce, leaving the rest of those bums in Destiny's Child to play around in the mud. But queef streaks wouldn't have to wait long to fill the void left by Hulk's departure, as 2023 would be the year of the man who, despite only having a fraction of Hulk's views, would go on to become arguably the biggest breakout star Street Beefs has ever seen. Satan's back passage has seen more than its fair share of people who can't fight. In fact, people who can't fight but are doggedly determined to windmill around like a cartoon dust cloud of punches navigating a tetanus obstacle course could have been an alternative name for the channel. But whereas most people who couldn't fight would generally be one-and-done competitors destined to be forgotten by connoisseurs of backyard fisting forever, only one man in Street Beef's history has managed to gain a cult following out of being genuinely terrible at fighting. That man is Death Sentence. Death Sentence, real name Mirage Johnson, made his Street Beef's debut in 2023. As debuts go, this one was definitely more metal magic than appetite for destruction.
Fucking pussy.
In a video titled, "He Has the Power of Anime on His Side," Death Sentence reminds everyone what's his motherfucking name and how long it will take him to finish this fight.
I am Death Sentence! And I'm gonna end this in 2 seconds!
I'm not going to lie and pretend I've been some ride or die Death Sentence fan since day one, because in reality, I was late to this particular hype train. I'd heard the name and seen people talk about him online, but as recently as this year, I'd never actually sat down and watched the man fight. After initially underestimating Shinigami based on his anime stylings, I was wary of doing the same with Death Sentence. Given all the chatter about him online, I assumed his boast of ending this in 2 seconds was a statement of intent not to be taken lightly. I was genuinely a little worried for his opponent, and then I watched the fight.
Fight! Watch you! Watch you!
Okay, so let's just pause this right here. It becomes apparent very early on that Death Sentence has no realistic idea of how to fight. He leaps at his opponent with the poise and grace of a drunken rioter, his game plan seemingly that if he fills enough space with fast-moving body parts, his opponent will eventually collide with something thanks to Newton's first law of motion. While this Newtonian-based approach to fighting was a bold strategy, it had a worse payoff than the average meme coin. Death's opponent, a man named Surfo the Last Wavebender, had a more grounded approach to combat. eschewing any hint of weebery and submitting death with a rear naked choke about 30 seconds in. After all the hype, I have to admit I was disappointed. But maybe he was having an off day, or holding back, or maybe the power of anime was actually on the side of his opponent, or maybe the power of anime was on his side, but the anime in question was Dark Cat.
I'd like to see you after school for a little while today. 3:30, room 2B.
Oh man, what a bitch!
Surely there must be some match where he pulls off some amazing 360 no-scope head kick KO, and that's the reason why he became so popular. This was what I told myself as I prepared to watch his next fight.
Less work.
What the hell is that?
So how does a man with the fighting ability of a narcoleptic coma patient become the face of street beefs? Well, despite the fact that the name Death Sentence appears to apply to him and not his opponents, Death's pure love of fighting and infectious enthusiasm is likely what's propelled him to become one of the most popular fighters in street beef's history. This is a man who trained himself to fight by watching anime and playing Batman Arkham Asylum. At least I hope it was Arkham Asylum and not Arkham Knight. Otherwise Death is going to spend most of his fights waiting for his car to show up and do all the fighting for him. But I'm not making that up. These are his own words.
I like to put on Batman Arkham City and emulate what he's doing. I memorize the moves in my head and I practice the moves at least 8 times, and I mark how many times I practice in a book, and I do that for all of the videos I watch.
And let me just be clear on this for anyone who's confused, but playing Arkham City to train for a fight is like watching RoboCop to prepare for a visit to Detroit. Normally, when people are delusional about their combat abilities, it just makes it all the more enjoyable when they get a dose of fistic reality, like when Mark Kerr bludgeoned that man wearing a diaper who claimed to have trained army bear pit fighting, whatever the fuck that is. But with Death Sentence, his joyous belief in these anime-infused delusions just makes you want to root for him to finally win a fight. This isn't like George Dillman or Ashita Kim trying to convince people that they have the ungodly power of the dim mak in order to sell you an instructional video or a tell-all biography of their horny ninja escapades. This is just a kid who's watched too much anime and wanted to emulate his heroes. But unfortunately, anime isn't real.
What's up with that bitchy woman? She's got quite an attitude.
And despite having an inspiring level of self-belief that some might say borders on self-delusion, he would fail time after time after time. Yet through all this, he never showed a lack of heart or enthusiasm, always seemingly convinced that this time he really would end it in 2 seconds, probably with a Hadouken or a Batarang or something.
I am Death Sentence! Yes, sir! White Wolf! Prepare to be slaughtered like the pig you are!
But the level of the average street beef's competitor nowadays is far from the early days of whatever this shit is.
Bitch, this is street beef, bitch!
And now pretty much everyone who steps into Satan's backyard has a baseline of competency when it comes to fighting. Everyone, that is, except for Death Sentence. Speaking as someone who also went viral thanks to street beefs, Shinigami had some insight into this.
In reality, people only go viral for like 3 things. Being really good at something, being really bad at something, or being unexpectedly good at something.
And to my mind, Death Sentence had absolutely gone viral for being genuinely terrible at fighting. It's at this point in the story where Street Beef's second big name cosign came about, because former ONE and UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Johnson had been streaming and reacting to Street Beef's matches for some time, and Death Sentences in particular. If the online discourse surrounding him is anything to go by, it seems that the people who watch Death's videos are split into 2 camps. Those who want to laugh at a delusional kid getting routinely choked out, and genuine fans who just really want to see him get a win. Demetrius Johnson fell into the latter camp. Well, okay, maybe he had a toe in both. Either way, DJ took Death under his wing and embarked upon a training arc dedicated to ensuring Death Sentence's real-life fighting abilities would one day be on par with his imaginary fighting abilities. It has not gone great. In a clip that should probably come with a trigger warning for near-fatal levels of second-hand embarrassment, Death struggles to differentiate left from right and showed a worse aptitude for boxing than stormtroopers have for marksmanship.
1, 2, left hook.
Oh, left hook.
Yep.
Like out for real.
Nope, no. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, and then 3?
That's a right hook, that's a 4.
This?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That.
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
Wait, so
Left hand first.
Oh. So this?
1, 2,
oh, wow.
3.
Okay.
You ready? Go.
Oh, okay, hold on. Stop my name. Oh, my. Bro, the 1-2 combination is the hardest shit ever.
But this was but one clip out of a training arc that spanned 5 months, 2 fights, and 3 hour-long videos, which I don't really want to spend time breaking down, so that can only mean one thing. This shit needs a montage. After many weeks of attempted weightlifting and probably inscribing L and R on his gloves, Death Sentence had his first fight with DJ in his corner. His opponent was a man who goes by the name Illuminate the State, whom, it should be noted, has a record in street beefs of 1 win, 10 losses. Death Sentence was 0 wins, 4 losses.
I am Death!
Death Sentence versus Illuminate the State is more painful to sit through than a Will Smith freestyle.
And even though I'm an action star, sometimes I'ma act bizarre.
If you have any love for MMA or combat sports in general, then this is like watching Julius Caesar burning the Library of Alexandria. After a minute or so of slapping and windmilling, the pair collapse in a tangle of twisted limbs like sex-starved teenagers. Death Sentence attempts what looks to be a bulldog choke before a solitary limp-wristed slap to the back of the head makes Illuminate the State rage quit the match.
Let's go! Cheater! You're a fucking piece of
And while it may have been 2 minutes of some of the worst MMA witnessed by mankind, the eruption of joy after Death Sentence is proclaimed the winner is not only the biggest crowd pop Street Beefs has ever heard, but just a genuinely joyous moment. Around this time, we were also introduced to a compatriot of Death by the name of Winged C.
Hi chat, I'm Winged C, 140. I was just at a furry rave last night, so honestly I'm tired as hell. But it's for the main character lore, so I'm gonna dance.
Winged C had been competing in street beefs for some time, but really saw his popularity skyrocket after allying himself with Death Sentence. Winged C is like the Armageddon to Death Sentence's Deep Impact. He has all the self-confidence, arrogance and memeability of Death, but the key difference is, Winged C can actually fight. Despite looking like a joke character from a Dead or Alive game, Winged C fights like the joke character from a Dead or Alive game. Utilizing his background as a breakdancer, C is constantly changing stances, moving awkwardly, taunting opponents, and attacking from weirder angles than an Escher drawing of Anderson Silva. His fights are genuinely enjoyable to watch because on top of his weird fighting style, Winged C also has power. Meaning that in every one of his fights, there's a chance you might get to see a man wearing a pair of 1990s raver girl wings breakdance his way into knocking someone out cold. And that shit is always worth a click. Whereas Death Sentence's over-the-top self-confidence can be kind of endearing for a man with the fighting ability of a newborn foal, Winged C is, well, he's a lot. Whether it's an act for the cameras or not, I can't tell, but C acts like he is constantly talking to a non-existent chat lobby.
Chat! That was goated, chat! Hi, chat. Time to get naked, chat. Chat!
This man is the living embodiment of Mr. Beast's editing style. He is a walking vine boom. In a clip that has since gone viral, C irritates and disrespects DJ to the point where DJ drops him with a head kick just to shut him up for 2 minutes.
Chat, make him hit harder. Yes. Good boy, good boy. Good boy. Turn up. Yeah, good boy.
He kept saying good boy. Good boy. Does he realize I'm fucking 38 years old and I've done this for 20 fucking years?
Hi, ultimate punch. Just kidding.
There we go.
Oh my goodness, now I'm down, crash. That was golden.
You see what I mean? There's
Yeah.
no point to go hard. I gotta put some respect on. This guy's gotta have some type of respect. So I threw a fucking high kick. It landed. I knew it was gonna fucking land. And he gets dropped.
Well, I guess now we know what the C stands for. A few months after his win over Illuminate the State, Death Sentence would fight, and lose, to a kid named Zachary.
I'm about to fuck you up. I want you to. I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh God, I'm ready.
While Death's technique did look somewhat improved in that he actually attempted a real submission here, instead of just wrenching the first body part he came into contact with, everything else was still classic Death Sentence. Despite having trained for 5 months with a world-class coach, the end result of all that training was Death charging at Zachary, swinging his arms like he was fending off a horde of invisible wasps. And this leads us to one of the more uncomfortable facets of street beefs, in that there's a sense of exploitation in letting a man with zero fighting abilities fight simply because it gets views. It was obvious from his debut that he had never fought before, yet he was allowed to go 0-4 until Mighty Mouse came along and gave him his first session of non-Batman based training. There is a danger in letting someone so unskilled step into a fight, and all the memes about him being a destroyer of worlds or whatever aren't going to be funny when he shit-talks himself into getting seriously hurt by someone with even a basic level of fighting experience. Well, it might be a little funny. It's unknown where the Death Sentence experiment goes from here. DJ can't train him for free forever, and part of me feels that DJ's attempts to turn him into just another MMA fighter are actually removing what people loved about him in the first place. He didn't gain popularity because of slick boxing or ground game. His virality was solely down to the fact that this kid walked, talked, and acted like the reincarnation of Count Dante, but fought like a 6-year-old on a sugar rush who's just found a cool stick. Trying to turn him into a proper MMA fighter is admirable, but it's also a bit like trying to remaster Deadly Premonition. If you remove all the bugs, glitches, and weirdness, and hire some professional voice actors to re-record all the dialogue, yes, you've technically improved it, but you've also erased what made it so captivating to begin with. Viral moments like those of Shinigami, Death Sentence or Baby Hulk were both blessing and curse for beefsteaks. While these fights drew millions of eyes to the channel, over time, this became what people expected of street beefs. The channel has gone from beef fights such as this one, where a guy got sent to jail because his opponent's girlfriend snitched on him, to anime-based meme fights. There are so few beef fights now that the channel should probably just rename itself to Street Vegans. Once Icy Mike killed that ninja, all of this was inevitable. Man cannot live on beef alone. This shift in tastes has been reflected in the channel's view counts. Most recent uploads tend to max out at around 30 to 50,000 views. Videos that do better tend to be either compilations or Winged Sea videos, but a single compilation video of Death Sentence's fights has more views than every single upload in the last month combined. And that's a shame, because I want Street Vegans to continue to exist for as long as possible. While it may seem like just a fistic meme factory in 2025, Street Vegans is important. This is an organisation that, for better or worse, will let pretty much any consenting adults fight.
Yeah, that's part of the appeal for street beefs, I would say. Like, that's like the main thing about street beefs compared to like sanctioned fights, where there's a lot of stuff you got to go through. You got to get paperwork. Sometimes they won't let you fight if you don't even have like the right gym. But street beefs is kind of, once you get there, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a fight.
And while that can be questionable when it comes to allowing someone like Death Sentence to take 4 hard losses before he ever did a single day of training that didn't involve trying to S-rank the Arkham Asylum challenge rooms, but for people like Sabrina Brown, who fights under the name Eternal, organizations like Street Beefs are vital, as no other organization will sanction fights for trans people.
Well, see, in my case, I can't get a sanctioned fight. And so, yeah, I just end up doing the unsanctioned fights just because there's a lot less paperwork and everything. There's a lot less like official hard rules. Like, I was supposed to have a pro fight like 3 years ago, and it ended up not happening at the last second just because the commission said that I had to fight topless, which I was like, I'm not going to do that.
While the idea of underground fight clubs conjures up images of people fisting each other to death in a green-filtered basement, everyone I spoke to for this video had the same conclusion. Street Beefs feels like a community.
If you really notice, there's not as many beef fights as there used to be. It's mostly people going there to compete or use it as a platform to promote themselves because they welcome everybody. And there's still beef fights, and the main thing is it's a brotherhood, it's about community, and it's actually about positivity. So in a lot of ways, it is, pretty progressive for a fight org.
Ninja Ron may have felt differently, but when I went to ask him, I couldn't find him anywhere. Really, the only bad thing I heard about Street Beefs through all of this was from Megadeth's post-fight medical attention, which somehow did more damage to him than the entire fight.
But they taped up the cut at the end of the night, and this is one of the negatives, is they put the tape kind of on my bottom eyelid. So as my friend is driving me home and I blink, the tape cuts my eyeball. I don't notice how bad it is. I think maybe I just got some dirt in my eye or something from fighting on the ground. And then the whole night, I don't even feel the cut on my eye or the cut on my cheek because the eye hurts so bad. So then I actually drove myself to the emergency room that morning and got it looked at, and sure enough, they said I had a corneal abrasion. I think they said it almost looked like a paper cut on my eyeball. Maybe the ringside physicians could have been a little better.
What started off in Scarface's backyard as a place for gangsters to settle disputes has now gone global and given people of every stripe a chance to compete. And while the original message of guns down, gloves up in the era of Winged Sea and Death Sentence seems about as archaic a concept as paying for pornography, I hope Satan's Back Passage remains open to everyone for a long time to come.
Oh, she tried kicking me in my fucking pussy.
What a bitch!
Welcome back to the Blown Apart Shopping Network.
Napoleon, it's so great to have you back at BSN! I hear you have something super special for us tonight. Want to tell our viewers about it?
I just know that if you're like me, you've always wanted to own a mutilated piece of another human being, a real conversation starter. A piece you can use to impress your friends, or use as a part of a blood rite to summon the great old one from its eternal slumber. Well, now you can, as the BSN offers you this once-in-a-lifetime deal. For only $7,000, you too can own the mutilated remnants of a human ear. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Now you too could own this formally attached ear. Preserved for eternity like a pharaoh's organ sealed inside a canopic jar. Act now and I'll even throw in this formally attached penis. Don't ask any questions.
It's 2023, and somewhere in the forlorn hellscape that is Northern England, a man using the assumed name of Lee is attempting to bring his own underground fight club to life. Lee has been hooked on watching unsanctioned fight clubs on YouTube since the initial COVID lockdowns of 2020, and now, 3 years later, has taken it upon himself to start his own.
I just remember just flicking through YouTube in lockdown and I come across this and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was just watching it for about 7 hours straight, just fight after fight after fight. Just everything, all the hooligans there with the masks on and everything, it's just, yeah, crazy, man.
But while organisations like Backstreet Beefs have rules, referees, and at least made an attempt to build something that resembles an octagon, even if half of it is fucking plywood, Lee is arranging a no-rules street fight to be held on whatever patch of God's cursed soil there is in this wasteland of Stockton-on-Tees. Eventually, a location is chosen. The fight is set to take place under a bridge, as if its competitors were common rock trolls. You'll notice I said fight, singular, and not fights, plural. And that's because Lee is not organising a fight club, in so much as he is arranging a fight, singular. As you might expect for a no-rules underground fight arranged by a man in a tracksuit, weight classes are an afterthought, and there's a size difference that would make Kelvin Gastelum hit the Ozempic. As far as each fighter's level of experience goes, the tale of the tape is, Christ only knows. The fight itself is nasty, brutish, and short. After the initial windmilling phase, the fight goes to the ground, or more accurately, to the foot-deep pool of runoff rainwater the men are brawling in. The larger competitor lands several full-force blows to the back of the head. A rule violation that would bring a regular fight to a shuddering halt, but not this affront to athletic commissions everywhere. After what is half rear-naked choke, half attempted drowning, his opponent taps out. And that's it. The handful of people in attendance go their separate ways, and the makeshift arena is now just a shabby, rain-sodden underpass once more. What inspires random guys to attempt to stage a kumite in a car park? Well, the answer to that is pretty straightforward. It's King of the Streets.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
King of the Streets is a no-rules, anything-goes underground fight club that originated in Sweden. And that's kind of all we know about it, so yeah, I guess that's it for this video. Okay, so there's probably a little more to this story that we should discuss. King of the Streets was founded in Sweden, and it is true that outside of its inner circle, not much is known about its hierarchy or operations. You won't find any Scarface-esque characters hogging the limelight here. In fact, most people involved with KOTS go out of their way to hide their identity, to the point that every fight is filled with more balaclavas than the 1996 IRA fall catalogue. There are several reasons why you might not want to be associated publicly with running a fight club like King of the Streets, and we'll get to those soon, but for now, let's just get into what exactly King of the Streets is all about. King of the Streets, or COTS for short, is a no-rules fight club that makes street beefs look like a rambunctious episode of the Teletubbies. Biting, Eye gouging, low blows, soccer kicks with shoes on, and fights take place on concrete.
There's no rules, no wrong. Headbutts, eye gouge, food, everything, whatever you want, allowed. Okay, don't, we keep you in the drawing, don't expect us to stop it. If you feel to grab the fence, you can grab the fence. Okay, any questions? Let's motherfucking go! Yes!
At every turn, COT seems to be going out of its way to be edgier than Shadow the Hedgehog at the Grand Canyon. But with over 1.5 million subscribers and even their own pay-per-views, it's a shtick that's absolutely working. From the outset, I have to give credit where it's due to COT's editors and videographers, because it's immediately apparent that this does not look or sound like any other Fight Club, aside from, well, Fight Club. The Street Beef's early fights were filmed on phones and uploaded straight to YouTube, with only the bare minimum of editing taking place. Things have improved in recent years with better cameras and editing, but it's still a very basic look and feel. COTs, on the other hand, are out here using 4K cameras, drone cameras, film quality color grading and photography. Also, you can see eye gouges and dick punching in 4K HDR. Everything in COTS, from its music choices to its camera work to its glitched out editing style, seems to have been chosen specifically to cause the maximum amount of anxiety and discomfort in the viewer. If you look at how the average UFC fight is filmed, the cameras are outside of the octagon looking down at the fighters and use a relatively wide field of view so that you can see the fighters and their positions relevant to the octagon at all times. COTS fights are filmed as close to the fighters as possible, with cameras positioned so that they are often looking up at the fighters, giving the fights a far more up-close, claustrophobic and POV vibe. The locations that these fights take place in are also chosen pretty specifically to up the intimidation factor. Abandoned buildings, warehouses, car parks, rooftops, an empty hockey rink. Abandoned, forgotten, or derelict spaces. The kind of places in which a body could lie undiscovered for months.
Would you risk Birdie Live for $500,000?
Yes, let's do it, man.
Okay, good luck, man. You're braver than me. This is gonna be crazy.
In their own words, COTS described themselves as no decisions, no rules, no rounds. The most notorious Fight Club, the one and only place for the unwanted ones, delivering the most stressed out and fucked up environment you can find. If Street Beefs is a light-hearted community of oddballs who enjoy fighting, COTS is a nihilistic, misanthropic celebration of violence for the sake of violence. COTS was founded in Gothenburg, Sweden around 2013, primarily as a fight club for hooligans. And now I realise that according to my demographics, over 50% of my audience is American, and you guys probably think a hooligan is a character in a Charles Dickens novel that is now a Broadway musical. But hooligans are a bit more serious than that. Hooligan as a term dates back to the 1800s, but this isn't that deep a history lesson, so let's skip ahead to the 1980s. In the 80s, the term hooligan applied exclusively to groups of hardcore soccer fans. Groups of hooligans, known as firms, would travel to soccer matches with the express intent of starting fights with rival firms, police, or just causing mayhem in general. This became a huge problem in the 80s and 90s, and even into the 2000s. In one particularly tragic incident, hooligans were blamed for causing the deaths of 39 fans in the Heysel Stadium disaster of 1985. I'm even old enough to remember that when Ireland played England in 1996, only 26 minutes into the match, a group of English hooligans began throwing anything from bottles to sharpened coins to seats they had torn out of the ground at Irish and non-violent English supporters alike. This was the Lansdowne Road riot of 1996. Out of 4,000 English fans, this entire riot was instigated by a group of only 30 hooligans. So while maybe not on the level of the Crips and the Bloods, hooligans are not to be taken lightly. One of COT's most popular uploads is a fight between two opposing hooligans, Simon the Savage and Ronan 030. According to COTS, both men were what is known as top boys, meaning high-ranking or even leading members of their chosen firm. As the fighters are introduced, Simon pounds the cold concrete of the makeshift arena, screaming and pounding his chest like the war drum of some forgotten chieftain, before annihilating the clearly overmatched Ronan 030 with a blitz of punches to the ecstatic howls of a blood-drunk crowd. The duality of man is ever surprising, as the same man who annihilated a fellow hooligan in a no-rules underground fight club can nowadays be found modelling the latest Tom Clancy novel and offering PT lessons on Insta. But even among some hooligans, COTS is viewed as being a bit much. Journalist Karim Zidan spoke to an author named Robert Klaus, an expert on German hooliganism, who wrote a book called Hooligans: A World Between Football, Violence and Politics. Klaus said, some German hooligans who are active in semi-professional combat sports said that they would never fight there because they believe it's dangerous to fight on concrete. They think it might ruin your body and your career if you get knocked out and hit the floor with your head. Then it's all over. This really is no exaggeration. And let me just be 100% clear on this for anyone who is wondering what my stance is, but fighting on concrete surfaces is the playground of the maniac. You only have to Google the words one-punch attack or coward's punch to see a litany of stories where someone was assaulted with a single punch and then collapsed and struck their head on concrete. The result in many of these attacks is death due to brain bleed, or at best, serious life-altering injuries.
You get a takedown on concrete floor, back of your head, fucking game over.
Yeah.
You just killed some dude accidentally.
Yeah, I know.
His family's going to get involved, obviously.
Oh, definitely.
You're going to be picked up. You know, whether you're consenting or not, you're still fucked. Willing to kill someone and go to jail over this? Are you willing to die over this?
Given the severity of some of the knockouts I've seen in King of the Streets, how no one has died due to this is beyond me. Combat sports are dangerous enough even in sanctioned events. In 2021, a fighter named Justin Thornton suffered paralysis and later died after being knocked out during a bare-knuckle event for BKFC. Just this year, 2 Japanese boxers fighting on the same card died due to trauma sustained in their fights. If COTS continues the way it has, sooner or later they'll add a name to that list. But I get the feeling that even if someone did die, COTS would just stuff the body in a wheelie bin and delete the footage. That wasn't a joke. Like most endeavours, COTS did not emerge fully formed. It took some time for them to evolve into the slickly produced and edited package that it is nowadays. Much like Street Beef's early offerings, COTS' initial uploads were hastily arranged brawls that looked like they were filmed on a wet dish rag. These early fights were from a series called Tunnel Fights, which unfortunately isn't a bunch of dwarves bare-knuckle brawling in the mines of Moria, but is in fact the far more depressing reality of 2 men brawling in a urine-soaked underpass. In these formative years, COTS even did beef fights a la Street Beefs. I've no idea what this particular beef match was about. Maybe they both turned up wearing the same outfit and one of them refused to go home and change. All of these early fights were done without any kind of refereeing or medical staff, and as such, they are all considered too violent for YouTube, as every one of them is age restricted and demonetized. But despite these early videos being age-gated and shadow banned, COTS, like many other channels, would see a surge of popularity during lockdown. I guess all that isolation really had a lot of us longing for the touch of another human being, even if the other human was attempting to curb stomp you. But since lockdown, there's no denying the view counts on COTS videos jumped exponentially. 1 million views here, 2 million there, 3 million here. And most of these viral hits were thanks to the whirlwind of screaming brutality that is Simon the Savage. Simon is 5-0 in King of the Streets, An impressive record for any promotion, but in a promotion as brutal as COTS, this is like being 5-0 at Russian roulette. A win record like this in COTS essentially makes you the Michael Jordan of booting people in the face. Simon's first viral hit was this Muay Thai versus Taekwondo fight, in which we discovered that Taekwondo should probably have a restraining order placed on it that keeps it 500 feet from no rules fighting at all times for its own safety. This video did 1.1 million views, despite being age restricted by YouTube. For Simon's next fight, COTS had upgraded to a makeshift octagon made of crowd control barriers, and lit the arena with the oppressive glare of floodlights. The intro to this fight is approximately 1 minute and 8 seconds long. That's over twice the length of the actual fight, which is even more impressive when you consider that Simon finishes his opponent twice. After a knockdown that should have in all likelihood ended this fight, his opponent is stood back up, only to endure a second finishing sequence that is honestly pretty difficult to watch. Simon's popularity peaked with his fight with Ronin 030, which has at time of writing almost 4 million views. Simon is currently living and training in Phuket, Thailand. In early 2025, he started a GoFundMe to raise money for a training camp, with his end goal being a contract with One Championship or Bare Knuckle FC. The fundraiser is still open, but after 7 months has only raised about €3,000. His recent Insta posts made it seem like he was just living his best life out in Thailand. Each photo is almost sickeningly laced with positivity. It's wall-to-wall ice baths, CrossFit, healthy living and hard work. But as I was writing this video, a clip began circulating of a man with a Danish accent and bearing a striking similarity to Simon in the midst of what appears to be a psychotic break. It's still unconfirmed if this is actually Simon, but the clip was filmed in Phuket where Simon lives, and the man is wearing a Fairtex shirt, Fairtex being a famous Muay Thai training gear brand. I reached out to people involved with COTS to ask if anyone knew if this really was him, and everyone I spoke to said it was. I also found this upload of the clip from the Phuket Times, which describes the man in question as a Danish boxer, all but confirming that the man in the clip is Simon. In 2021, COTS well and truly cemented their ability to go viral, with the fight between Insanus and Shooter, which I guarantee is the best fight video you'll ever see, where one man is wearing jeans for the entire fight. Taking place on the filthy hardwood floor of an abandoned attic, two guys who don't look old enough to be watching the video that they're starring in brawl non-stop for close to 8 minutes. And while it may not be the most technical fight you'll ever see, it is one of the grittiest, bloodiest, and realest.
I see some battle wounds and some bruises. That's great.
Post-fight, both men are battered and streaked with the grime and dust of countless years, their faces a mask of blood. As they embrace each other in a show of mutual respect, the crowd erupts into an oceanic roar. The fight is summed up best by one comment, which says, "This is fighting for the sake of fighting. No fancy belts, no stupid titles, just blood and glory." Given the fleeting nature of most fighters' tenure in COTS, it's rare that we get to know any of them on a deeper level than, oh, this guy's a Muay Thai guy, or this guy's definitely killed a non-zero number of prostitutes. But with most fighters' careers lasting only 1 or 2 fights, it's not really an organization that lends itself to developing fighters' personalities. Even with 7 million views to their names, neither Insanus or Shooter ever had another fight fight as far as I can see. That's why it's hard to find any shinigamis or death sentences among KOT's roster. The fighting itself is just too brutal to make it a sustainable career path or an organization in which to build your own brand. But despite this, some fighters do manage to rise above being just another brain waiting for a concussion, such as this fighter named Cocaine Charlie. Only one of Charlie's 3 fights has been uploaded to YouTube, and it only lasts about a minute, but I think about this man a lot, due to the fact that he is the only person I have ever seen win a fight via flying headbutt walk-off KO. Another man to make a name for himself in KOTS is Alex Etherington. It's genuinely surprising to see MMA mentioned in mainstream news media in the UK or Ireland. The sports coverage you get over here tends to devote itself to soccer, rugby or Gaelic football, with MMA being a bigger afterthought than Eric Trump, unless McGregor happened to expose his anus to a bus full of nuns or something similarly newsworthy. So it was genuinely surprising to come across an article about King of the Streets on the website for one of the biggest tabloid newspapers in the UK. I know, The Sun is to newspapers what Seagal is to martial arts, but still it's pretty surprising. My ear was bitten off in brutal underground UK fight clubs where anything goes. I keep it proudly in a pickle jar. As headlines go, it's no Gordon Ramsay's dwarf porn double found dead in a badger den in Wales, or find the bastard who shot down my chimney, but it is a decent effort. In 2023, KOTS expanded from mainland Europe and staged their first ever event in the UK, and the most notorious fight that emerged from their sojourn to these islands was Alex vs Bash, the fight so brutal it made headlines. Bash had previously gained notoriety for knocking out his opponent during a pre-fight stare-down. The fact that this fight was filmed in grainy black and white and looks like it took place in Leatherface's rec room just adds to the snuff film vibe that KOTS had been perfecting over the last 6 years. Seconds into the fight, Bash goes immediately for eye gouges, but not content with that, he proceeds to bite down on Alex's ear, shredding a large chunk clean off.
Biting someone's ears off isn't going to do anything. Who needs their ears?
At this point, I think most people would have said, this shit isn't worth the free t-shirt, and tapped out. But Alex is, well, he's kinda special. Securing a takedown, Alex does some eye gouging of his own, which he uses to take mount. He then uses mount position for even better ocular penetration. And as Bash screams in agony, the fight is waved off. The whole thing only lasts about a minute and a half, yet sees 2 men almost blinded and one leave with less body parts than he arrived with.
I know combat sports aren't safe, but compared to this, they're like a fucking tea party. They are. Anything could go wrong, anything. You need to go in there thinking, right, I could die here, so I'm either going to get ready to die or ready to kill someone.
Surprisingly, given that it was a fight comprised entirely of fouls, both men hug it out, and even pose for some of the most gruesome post-fight pictures imaginable. Alex has now fought twice for KOTS, with his most recent fight being in their most extravagant pay-per-view yet, King of the Streets Matador. I attempted to sit down and chat with him about his career in bare knuckle and no rules fighting. I say attempted, because despite numerous tries, we never actually made it work.
Oh, you useless b****s. Honestly, we've had weeks and weeks and weeks to do this, and you just haven't been able to fucking sort it out. This is on you.
Just to clear up any confusion, it was always his fault. We did, however, chat fairly frequently via DM.
Wanker.
And Alex is not the kind of person you might expect after watching his fights. Despite taking part in a fight that looks like a street fight broke out in the Blair Witch basement, Alex is as hilarious as he is handsome. I mean, Jesus, look at this dude. This guy might be one of the funniest people I've ever talked to, and despite the model good looks and fighting abilities, Alex is more down to earth than a 737 MAX built by IKEA. We chatted so much shit to each other that it got to a point where I was randomly sending him Shadow the Hedgehog gifs, and when I asked him if he minded if I called him New Metal Jon Snow for this video, he replied, Timu Aquaman. And just a brief sidebar here, the following clip is a video Alex sent to a woman on a dating app when she asked could she hear his accent, and this might be the best 27 seconds of cinema I've seen all year.
Hello there. This is my voice that I know you love to hear. And this is my accent. And it's scum. Absolutely scum. And I know that you can't wait to hear it in person. Fuck.
It's honestly difficult to reconcile the fact that the same man who once DM'd me this
I wake in the morning and I look outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream at the top of my lungs.
is the same guy who won the single most brutal fight I've ever seen. But if you had preconceived notions of what kind of person takes part in hardcore, no-rules street fighting, I guarantee Alex is not what you'd imagined. While we never had our interview, I did ask Alex to record his thoughts on what bare-knuckle and no-rules fighting really means to him.
Yeah, mate, so what you're going to have to do is remind me tomorrow to do this video, and I mean remind me, give me a message at around 9 o'clock, and then that'll fucking, and then I can do it, because I've just finished and now I need to fucking go, right? Okay, nice one.
I probably should have expected that. In his own words, Alex only got into COTS out of a sense of boredom after feeling like neither MMA or boxing was exciting him anymore. It was a weird bucket list kind of thing, he said. I needed something else in my life, not just the monotony of clocking in and out of work. And that is a sentiment that tracks. As for the people I interviewed for this video, boredom was one of the biggest drivers for competing in unsanctioned fighting. Shinigami and Megadeth fought to stave off the boredom of COVID lockdowns, and Alex fought in COTS as a way to escape the monotony of the daily grind. It's impossible to escape the influence of 1999's Fight Club when talking about these organizations, but it really does seem that whether by imitation or influence, the boredom and apathy that spurred Ed Norton's character to create that film's titular Fight Club is the same that's felt by many who enter the world of underground fighting for real. But not everyone gets into no-rules fighting out of sheer boredom. There are exceptions to this rule.
But yeah, I did it because it was fun, and I wanted the t-shirt.
Infamous for both his fighting style and outspoken personality, Eric Olson, aka Bloodaxe, is possibly the biggest name in King of the Streets. In making this video, I reached out to several COTS fighters to see if they'd be open to being interviewed, and Bloodaxe was one of the only people to actually take me up on the offer.
My name's Eric Olson. I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm from America. I'm America, and fuck Donald Trump. I hate Trump. I want to make that very clear because people seem to confuse that. I have no respect for the Republican Conservative Party, especially the conspiracy theorists. Trump is a degenerate of epic proportions. He's a rapist. I don't like him, and I don't like America. I don't support America, and I don't represent America when I fight. I represent myself.
I'm not gonna lie, I was legitimately nervous going into this interview, and it only got worse when I had to try and talk Eric through downloading Zoom on his phone, an ordeal that made me think he might actually find a way to soccer kick me through the screen. If you're wondering why I was nervous, this is a man with a collection of human teeth. I was not trying to piss this man off. So, what was it that brought you to King of the Streets initially?
It's no other way to put it. There's no deep meaning. I saw King of the Streets on YouTube back in 2021. I contacted them while I was living in the UK. This was during COVID, so flights weren't as straightforward and easy. Basically, I just saw it and I was like, this looks fun. I mean, I've been in fights all over the street here in New York, in America, and then fights in, when I was younger and I was incarcerated. I didn't do it for the money because they don't pay as much as like the bare knuckle company I fight for. It's not about money. It was just basically about fun. Like I wanted the t-shirt.
Do you ever worry about the physical consequences of fighting in such a hardcore form of competition.
Like when people say hardcore, that to me isn't, it's hardcore to every, yes, but it's still regulated compared to the situations I've been in Nassau County and Suffolk and downstate and Fishkill correctional facilities 20 years ago when I was younger. But those situations were a lot more serious with consequences, both physically and legally. So King of the Streets is like, you don't have to worry about getting shot or stabbed, and you don't have to worry about prison in America, which is the worst thing in the world with the way it's run.
Eric holds the record for the most amount of fights in COTS, with 7, and is infamous on the scene for not only being the only American in COTS, he also pioneered the eye gouging technique.
Whether people like it or not, I'm the one who innovated the brutality. Without me, people weren't gouging eyes. And now, the people who still gouge eyes, they don't know how to do it, which is why their fights suck and they can't finish them.
He even gave me an almost 15-minute long instructional on correct eye gouging techniques.
And I slide this up here, I'm already hitting the eyeball. You can grab the bone. Once you grab the bone in here or down, they're done. And you push and you'll hit the back of that bone. And if I go straight down with my thumb, all my full body weight is coming into my thumb and I'm hitting the back of their eye socket.
And after that, all I have to say is, John Jones, I'm coming for that title. Gouging eyes is a choice that has led many to call him a dirty fighter, but in the world of no rules fighting, I feel like hating on someone for eye gouging is a bit like hating on someone for spawn camping in a Battlefield game. Yeah, it's not a tactic the game was designed around, but it's also not illegal, so you can't really be mad when someone uses it. Bloodaxe is also one of the few fighters who has had beef fights, and his most famous beef fights are with a man named Tomas. And this leads us to the thrashing blue whale in the room.
Yeah, I think I had read that your beef with him was basically his neo-Nazi beliefs, was that right?
Yeah.
Tomas is an out and proud neo-Nazi, and many who fight in COTS belong to neo-Nazi or other extremist groups. And okay, it's around about now I can hear certain people Tokyo drifting their way to the comment section to tell me that people on the left call everyone a Nazi just because they disagree with them. And yes, people on the left do have a habit of calling anyone they disagree with a Nazi, which does have the knock-on effect of diminishing it as a label if you apply it to everyone even vaguely right of centre. But when someone has tattoos of SS lightning bolts, several swastikas, the words white power, a portrait of Rudolf fucking Hess, and also runs one of the largest online stores for Nazi-inspired clothing, I'm pretty sure I'm looking at a bona fide Nazi, and all the gaslighting in the world isn't going to convince me that those swastika tattoos are actually window tattoos that he's getting done on an installment plan. There are other fighters with links to extremism who have appeared in COTS, such as Tom Neubert, who is described in this article as being part of an increasingly professionalized, internationally well-connected neo-Nazi and hooligan network. And this is the ugly truth behind COTS' ties to hooliganism. Because remember that 1996 riot I mentioned earlier, and how it was caused by only 30 hooligans? Well, those 30 hooligans were members of an infamous neo-Nazi group, later designated as a terrorist organization called Combat 18. The links between hooligans, neo-Nazis and extremism is a long-standing one, and in some cases, not even an attempt was made to hide those links, such as the hooligan firm named Hoonara, which was shorthand for hooligans, Nazis and racists, a name that leaves very little room for doubt as to what these guys' worldview was. It should be noted that not every hooligan firm is extremist in their beliefs, but extremists absolutely view hooligan firms as fertile soil for recruitment. A 2019 RAND Centre of Excellence paper on the subject stated that extremists use the stadium, ultra groups and hooligan groups as spaces for recruitment. The paper also noted that this can be a generational issue, stating that it should be taken into account that hooligans are not always recruited, but may have been raised in an environment conducive to extremist beliefs and attitudes. The end result of recruiting your stable of fighters from hooligan firms is that whether you intend to or not, a not insignificant percentage of your roster is going to be made up of people who harbor some pretty extreme and hateful views. As for King of the Streets, the organization itself maintains that they are staunchly apolitical. When one fan questioned why COTS would allow an anti-fascist fighter to compete, they replied, "Everyone is welcome to Fight Club. We don't give a fuck. ISIS is welcome, terrorists welcome, Nazi welcome, anti-fascists welcome. We don't care."
Yeah, like King of the Streets isn't a political organization, and they're not neo-Nazis, they're not anything, they're not involved in that.
In an interview with Karim Zidan, Jonathan Lehman, a researcher with Swedish anti-racist magazine Expo, said, "My perspective is that it's neither fascist nor anti-fascist. It's more about the fighting." COTS is infamous for its impressive implementation of foul-based fighting, but eye gouges, headbutts, dick twists, and a panic-inducing feeling that we are a rapidly devolving species isn't all this organization has to offer. What helps COTS stand out from similar unsanctioned organizations is that by comparison, it has a much higher caliber of fighter. Street Beef's competitors are all amateur fighters, in some cases sub-amateur.
Ah, she fucking kicked me in my fucking pussy.
Once a fighter turns pro, the doors of Street Beefs are closed to them, but there are no restrictions on a fighter's level of experience in COTS. Hence, this is one of the few underground fight clubs you can find that actually has professional level fighters. Blood Axe has fought for Bellator, and other fighters such as Abner Skullman Yoveris have fought in the UFC. Skullman was even part of the McGregor vs Faber season of The Ultimate Fighter and made it to the quarter-finals, winning 2 out of 3 fights. Other notable COTS alumni are Brian Hoy, aka Hoy Boy, who has a pro record of 19-12-0 and has fought in Bellator and KSW. I bring up Hoy and Skullman not only because they're some of the more experienced and talented fighters COTS has on its roster, but because these two men were involved in a fight that is worthy of anyone's time, even those who might be turned off by the no-rules nature of COTS. Every organization has legendary fights. Pride had Sakuraba vs Gracie, the UFC has Griffin vs Bonner, Power Slap had Dana versus his wife. COTS has Hoy Boy vs Skullman. This fight is an absolute feat of human endurance. For contrast, the current largest bare-knuckle league, BKFC, has 2-minute rounds, so that even in a 5-round fight, the absolute longest you're going to go is 10 minutes. Skullman and Hoy fight non-stop for 20 straight minutes. By the end of this fight, each man's hand wraps are so blood-soaked you can almost hear a sickening squelching sound as each shot lands. Once upon a time, I said, a soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of coloured ribbon, and for little more than their own bit of coloured ribbon, whether that's in the form of pride, a purse, or simply a feeling of truly being alive in a world that seems intent to numb us into an apathetic existence. Brian Hoy and Abner Yoveris put on one of the most impressive feats of endurance you'll see in combat sports. In Brian's own words, "This is the most raw form of fighting. We compete in these events to satisfy an inner feeling, an urge for blood like in the gladiator times." Even in the bleakness of King of the Streets, there is artistry to be found. While Street Beef's views have seen a bit of a decline outside of Winged Sea or Death Sentence content, COTS are still doing more numbers than Alex Mason's tax returns.
I don't know anything about any numbers.
Their most recent event, Matador, was their most high-production offering to date, and its views on YouTube reflect this, with each fight racking up over 1 million views. Moving away from urine-soaked underpasses, warehouses and car parks, Matador was filmed in a bullfighting arena in Spain. And dare I say it, this is man's inhumanity to man rendered in the most attractive way possible. You will not find better looking bare-knuckle bludgeonings anywhere. There is no need for COTS to be going this hard with their cinematography, but I appreciate that they did. Even if the fighting itself doesn't appeal to you, there's no denying that COTS have raised the bar for what an underground fight club can produce with this. The stylized look and high-resolution fight footage makes the entire event play out more like a film than a fight, and even has the added effect of tricking your brain into thinking that these can't possibly be real fights because it all looks so cinematic. But regardless of its good looks, Matador lost none of COTS' trademark brutality. The most shocking moment of the whole event comes in the fight between Lucas Sunken and Mamba. Mamba initially loses the fight via rear naked choke, but post-fight decides that right now is the best time to start running his mouth about how whack it is to use grappling in a street fight.
Good standing fight, you motherfucker. Brother. Huh? I'll take you. No.
Once Mamba is finished owning himself, the referee immediately restarts the fight, and Mamba immediately regrets every decision that led him to this moment. But COTS' cinematic aspirations didn't end with Matador. In 2023, they unveiled a Kickstarter campaign to fund a documentary movie.
King of the Streets, like Fight Club. No rules, no rounds, on cement. Closest thing you'll get to watching like a gladiatorial event. Minus the fucking death.
We know what can happen to us. And inherently we accept that it could happen to us. We give ourselves up to do this.
The funding goal was $50,000, which was both met and exceeded, as a grand total of $70,000 was raised. Backer rewards ranged from the standard name in the credits, to a t-shirt, to a training day with Brian Hoy, Simon the Savage, or for those who wish to work on the flexile strength of their eyeballs, Blood Axe himself. But one of the top rewards, at $7,000, was, for some fucking reason, Alex Etherington's previously attached ear. I'm not sure what the legality of selling human body parts is, but clearly neither are COTS, because you could own this today. If you have $7,000 to spare, the ear tier is still available. And I even confirmed with Alex himself in one of our many friendly chats that this really is his ear and not just a stunt ear.
Why would he find a random ear lying around, you Of course it was my ear. It's literally in the jar that I have in my kitchen. I can send you a picture. God, I hate you so much.
What's up with that bitchy woman? She's got quite an attitude.
COTS have pointed out several times that they are personally not involved with the making of this film and are just allowing the director and crew to have access to their fights and fighters, which is probably for the best, because as of November 2025, it will be 2 years since the project was fully funded, and in that time there has been approximately 2 updates. I get that these things take time and effort, but I also know that if I only updated my Patreon once a year, people might start to ask questions about what the fuck they're paying for. The documentary has its own Instagram page, which did get one new photo 5 weeks ago with the caption "Trust the process," which is historically something you hear shortly before a process is revealed to be about as trustworthy as a Dana White pinky promise. In an effort to get a clear picture of where the project was at, instead of jumping to conclusions, I reached out to the director Victor Pam, and whether he didn't see my message or chose to ignore it, I'll never know, because I've yet to receive a reply. I genuinely don't think that this Kickstarter is a scam. There's clearly a lot of work that's already been poured into it, judging by the trailer alone. I just think it needs to be managed better, because a single update per calendar year is the kind of communication I expect from Father fucking Christmas, not a documentary that's had $70,000 of public funding poured into it, and that 3 backers have bought in at the $10,000 tier. I really hope this does get finished, as I want nothing more than to see this documentary released. At this point, I've watched enough COTS to be invested, and to want to know what happens to these fighters when the cameras stop rolling. 2025 has seen COTS attempt to broaden their appeal, from the absolute bloody cinema of Matador to some interesting developments in the fights themselves. Their most recent event has seen them branch out into small-scale riot simulations, with their first ever 2v2 fights. 2025 also saw them stage their first ever women's fight, a development that was met with the kind of open-minded acceptance one might expect from an internet comment section in 2025. Clearly there is a market for hardcore, no-rules street fighting. The views on their channel and the rush to fund the documentary prove that. A sentiment you'll see repeated over and over in their comment sections is that this is the real UFC. And that's not really that far off the mark, as COTS does harken back to the early days of MMA, the no-holds-barred era. An era that was defined by the slogan, "There are no rules," before MMA became regulated, rule imposed and neutered by corporate interests. There is no bullshit when it comes to COTS. No octagon littered with sponsor logos, no celebrities or politicians sitting ringside for a photo op, no one trying to convince you that Powerslap has 8 billion followers on TikTok. There aren't even any belts or titles to fight for. It's fighting for nothing more than the sake of fighting, and that I can absolutely respect. In an era that seems hell-bent on shoving artificial experiences down our throats to the point we can no longer differentiate real from fake, the raw, brutal reality of King of the Streets is almost refreshing. But after months of binging on COTS content for this video, I'm still not sure I'd call myself a fan.
I've been a fan of MMA since Pride days, basically. But even for me, watching King of the Streets, I find it even a bit much. Sometimes I'm like, Jesus, where's the humanity in this, you know?
There's no humanity. There's not supposed to be. It's a street fight. Humanity doesn't enter it. I mean, I don't think humanity enters any fight for what it's worth. If I'm fighting with somebody in a ring or a cage or in a street or a jail cell or 7-Eleven at 2 in the morning because they looked at me wrong, there's no humanity. For those moments where fighting, I'm trying to fucking hurt you as bad as I can to leave in one piece.
There is a lot about COTS outside of its aesthetics that I do enjoy. I like seeing how fighters deal with things like legal fence grabs, or how the threat of headbutts and soccer kicks changes the ground game. I also appreciate that an entire COTS pay-per-view is shorter than the average Marab fight. But until now, no other video I've worked on has really taxed my mental state quite like this one. This has been a hard video to make, with some particularly unpleasant topics that I've had to research. At times it's felt like I've spent the last few months reading the sports section of the fucking Necronomicon. But I'm glad I made it, and some of my initial opinions on COTS have changed to be more positive. But even though COTS maintain they are apolitical, it's still difficult to support an organisation that's willing to put money in the pockets of anyone from an ISIS executioner to Nick the Nazi from falling down.
Think about it.
And for as long as they insist on fighting on concrete, I strongly feel like it's only a matter of time before a completely avoidable death happens. But as someone who once got teary-eyed during a particularly emotional episode of Pokemon, I think the brutality of King of the Streets was never going to be for me anyway. Fight Club was written by Chuck Palahniuk in 1996 and turned into a movie directed by David Fincher in 1999. The central thematic pillar of the film is that society has neutered and numbed the men of the day with consumerism and corporate Jacob's ladders to climb, to the point where they feel so disconnected from society that they are willing to brawl in a dingy basement just to feel something. Fincher said of the film, "We're designed to be hunters, and we're in a society of shopping. There's nothing to kill anymore, there's nothing to fight, nothing to overcome, nothing to explore. In that societal emasculation, this everyman is created." That's how Palahniuk and Fincher viewed the world of the mid to late 90s, a time of relative peace and prosperity, a pre-9/11 world that was still largely disconnected before the rise of always online internet, social media, iPad babies and ChatGPT fuck buddies. We live in a world that is so far removed from the comparatively idyllic charm of 1996 that I shudder to think what a version of Fight Club written in the 2020s would look like. But perhaps that's why a concept that seemed so shocking in the 90s is more common than ever nowadays, like a Starbucks serving up concussions. Fight clubs are springing up every week, all over the globe, and in wildly different forms. From people like Lee in the UK arranging fights under motorway bridges, to Australia, where we have the Hood Contender, a fight club where literally every fighter has come for one specific reason.
Yeah, I'm just keen to have a crack. I'm just here to have a crack, fella. Me to have a crack. Me to really have a crack.
In Latin America, we have everything from a community-led bare-knuckle Easter celebration to Pitbull Fight Club and women's street fighting. In Asia, we have Yacha FC. There's also a French COTS clone called Respect of the Streets, which rather hilariously even has their ring girls in balaclavas. At the finale of the movie, fight clubs have gone nationwide, and its creator can only watch as they mutate and shift into something unrecognizable to him. But much like the world of the 2020s would be almost unrecognizable to the world of 1996, the real fight clubs could not be more different than those envisioned in Palahniuk's novel. And while some organizations like King of the Streets harken back to the nihilism at the core of Fight Club, there are others like Street Beefs that are a welcoming and positive force for anyone involved. The doors of these fight clubs will always be open, whether you're fighting out of a sense of societal emasculation, sheer boredom, or for a stylish t-shirt.